What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Matty P, Shannon White here with another episode of the Steelers Global Perspective. On today's show, we are talking all things free agents. But before we get into that, Shannon, how are you going, my good friend?
Well, I'm doing wonderful. We've had a wonderful discussion here before the show and getting our ducks in a row, and I am ready to roll.
I love that saying. I love the ducks in a row. It's just line them all up. It sounds very hunting. But look, I think it's been a really interesting week for the Steelers. There's been a lot of discussion around coaching staff, offensive, defensive. The kind of, I guess, whether it's breaking news, the rumor is, I've not seen anything as we record live recording, but all reports are that they're bringing back Teryl Austin for 2 years. I did a show earlier in the week on the channel about that. I talked about the pluses and minuses because it's kind of interesting, his defensive rankings. Certainly, I said if you were going to re-sign him, I don't want to see a 3 or 4 year deal. Even if Mike Tomlin signs a 3 or 4 year deal, I want to see a 2 year deal. I guess, obviously, that's going to frame up a little bit what they do in free agency, but it's more of the same. It's kind of not a surprise, I think, for most Steelers fans. But I would just say, I just want to ask you one question, one burning question on it. Do you think if Teryl Austin signs 2 years, that means Mike Tomlin's only signing for 2 years? Or do you think that they're giving themselves room to move Teryl Austin on and re-sign Mike Tomlin for longer?
Well, I agree. I'd like to see 2 year deals, 2 year extensions for both if they're going to do that. Of course, Terrell's would be 2 years from today, whereas Tomlin still has next year on his contract. A lot of things can happen. If you give Teryl Austin some quality cornerbacks and a safety, and the Steelers defense really can play the kind of defense he wants to play, he could be very successful next year. And then he might be in high demand. When you see some of the guys who are being interviewed right now, Teryl Austin's very close to being on that level if he had a full complement of talent and pieces. I mean, he could not play the defenses he wanted to play with the secondary he had. They were so slow. I mean, Patrick Peterson has lost 2 steps. Levi Wallace never had a step to begin with. He's done. The Keanu Neal, I've seen there's tons of inside linebackers in the Final Four. I've been doing research for my next article that run better than Keanu Neal or Wallace, to be honest. So, you're dealing with, he was severely limited. His hands were tied with the talent he had to work with. So I think that he showed a lot of creativity at the end of the year, putting all the practice squad guys, patchworking the defense together and keeping the Steelers in playoff contention. So I think he deserved that 2 year extension. I think it became official today on the Pittsburgh site. So
yeah, maybe it did. Yeah.
And so I'm happy for him, but they have to give him the talent that his defense requires.
Yeah, no, and maybe I'm a bit harsh, and maybe the conversions on 3rd and long, and the gashing of the defense and the points that are scored.
I agree. I mean,
maybe I think sometimes I can be harsh. I don't necessarily take in the full context with him, but I do think
scoring defense is one thing, but the reason why all them, like you said, 3rd and long conversions is because he's either playing soft zone or he's playing off man to where you're lining up 7 yards and 8 yards off, and it makes for easy completions and connections, lets quarterbacks get in a rhythm. I mean, it's not the modern way to play defense, but his hands were tied, I believe.
But I guess we do have a lot of free agents. A guy there you're talking about in Levi Wallace. We've got Montravius Adams in there. We've got Marcus Golden, Quan Alexander, James Pierre. I didn't see any designation in terms of what they're doing with Miles Jack, but technically he was on the practice squad, and under that you can sign a futures contract. But I think he's got too many years experience to qualify for that. But I might be corrected there where I'm wrong. Micah Walker, Blake Martinez, Reynolds Wren, who has probably been at times injured, but it's not like he's a starter or anything like it. James Pierre, who you've written extensively about before. I guess they're just a litany of names.
Do you want to bring them up and let's talk about it?
Yeah, I can bring them up. Yeah.
I mean, what I'm saying is we can talk about them individually, for a quick and, give our opinions because they've got a lot of free agents, but I don't think there's a lot of them they necessarily have to bring back.
Yeah, and this is the thing that I'm interested in is like how many. I don't know how big this is and how big this is for you on your side. Not very. Yeah, that's it.
If you want to, you don't have to leave that up there. You just list one and then we'll talk about it.
I'll leave it up there because I think when people go back and look at it, they'll see it. But so I guess Levi Wallace. I mean, I don't know. Like you're like bye. I mean, for me, I'm. I guess I look at it and go, well. If he's willing to take the vet minimum to stay and he's your fourth or fifth cornerback, I don't hate it, but I'm not sitting there. I'm like, that's the first move you make. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, now you know what my podcast partner, Big G, calls him. He says trash, and he said he was trash before the season. He didn't want him, and I said, well, he's a good veteran to have, but I was hoping he was going to be cornerback 3, cornerback 4. Then he had to spend most of the year at cornerback 2. He is not a cornerback 2. He is a depth piece. He is somebody you bring in at different alignments or different packages. As you said, veteran minimum at minimum. I mean, at maximum. You give him nothing more because he's only going to get slower. He's smart, but he's slow. He's very slow. So I just, depending, I'd rather see them move on, to be honest. And I would rather see like a Joey Porter Jr., a top free agent, cornerback 2, or a top draft pick, first, second round. Then see if Corey Trice pans out. And then Darius Rush, who I still want to see more of. If you have those 5 in any setup, I think the defense secondary will be much better next year.
I'm going to jump down the list then. What do you think about James Pierre and Shannon Sullivan? I think Shannon Sullivan's earned the right to come back to me. I think he's very scheme and set specific. Personally, I don't think we need to kick around on James Pierre anymore, but I do know that you've previously quite liked James Pierre.
I like James Pierre as a cornerback 4 for the value and for his value as a gunner.
Yeah.
And I hope that he could develop if they played a little bit more man, actual true press, to give him some opportunities with safety help over the top, of course, because he has some speed deficiencies as well. But again, it all comes down to how much, because I could easily move on. I named 5 possibilities, and he wasn't one of them. Now, Shannon Sullivan, to me, I definitely think they need an upgrade at slot corner.
Oh, he can't be the starting slot corner. Absolutely not.
They went from
Hilton.
Thank you. I could not think. I kept.
I knew who you were talking about.
I wanted to call him Milton, but when they went from Hilton to Millette, that's where the M come from. When they went to Millette, that was a huge drop off.
Oh, yeah.
I knew Sullivan was not good. When he played with the Vikings had a record-breaking bad defense. And that's the only reason he was playing. He'll make a big play ever so often. But just for normally, he's not good. So I could easily move on from him, and I'd like to see an upgrade, definitely. Somebody said Hilton's a free agent, but Hilton's going to get a bigger contract than what I think the Steelers can afford right there.
Oh, yeah. I don't
know if he'd come back anyway because he burned a lot of bridges in Cincinnati when he was calling out the Steelers for the lack of professionalism and quitting and all that stuff. I don't know if he would be welcome back or he'd want to come back.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the bigger crux of the matter. I guess then there's a couple of guys here on the D line in Armon Watts and Montravius Adams. I don't really need to see Montravius Adams back from my perspective. Armon Watts, if you bring him back at a vet minimum, I mean, fine, but I obviously care because I care about the Steelers, but for them personally, I couldn't care less whether those two guys are the depth pieces or not.
I actually, Montravius Adams, I wrote about all his deficiencies through the first half of the year. And then PFF put out that he was one of the highest graded nose tackles. Now, their definition of a top nose tackle and mine are completely different. When it comes to the nose, I want a guy that stops the run. I want him to anchor. Now, if he can get penetration and make tackles for losses and pressure the quarterback sometimes, that's great. But first, you got to stop the run and tie up blockers. He's terrible at it. When he finally got healthy and come back, he was terrible at it. So I'm not interested in him. Now, Watts, on the other hand, Montravius Watts, I thought he did an excellent job as depth. So when you're talking about, because he can play some tackle, he can play some end.
Yeah.
He's versatile. He's strong. He's solid against the run. He doesn't offer a lot in pass rush, but every once in a while he flashes. So I think there's a good guy to bring back with on a reasonable contract as depth.
Yeah. All right. I'm with that. I'm pretty aligned on that one. We'll get to safety in a moment because some of those guys, but I think linebacker is the other key one from this free agent part.
Yes, definitely.
And you could categorize these in inside or out, but I'll just bundle them together because we're probably talking really about one outside guy, Marcus Golden. So you've got Marcus Golden on this list. You've got Quan Alexander. You've got Blake Martinez, you've got Michael Walker, and technically you have Miles Jack as well. Out of that list, is there anyone you want to bring back? I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this.
I would say Miles Jack's, he had a really nice run there at the end of the season. And a lot of people remember him from 2017, 2018, and they started getting excited. Yeah. But they forgot 2019 to last year. He cannot stay healthy.
No.
We knew that about Quan Alexander. Well, that's why he can't stay anywhere because he can't stay healthy. When he does healthy, he plays great. So if you got Quan Alexander and you got Jax, I'll take Alexander if I'm going to give a veteran minimum to a risk to be a depth guy.
Yeah.
Because Alexander, talent-wise, is a starter. But availability-wise, he's a backup. So, to me, Alexander it would all depend on cost. And to me, Miles Jax is going to, again, move on with his life's work. He was going to do that, and then the Steelers got desperate. But I don't know. They got an upgrade. They have to upgrade, and they have to draft and develop young talent. They have to have a young guy who could come in and be the leader of that defense that they haven't had since Ryan Shazier. So the Steelers have a legacy, Matty, a legacy at inside linebacker that they haven't lived up to since Shazier and Williams. We have to get back to that.
And I think there's almost a legacy show we should do on center and linebacker because they're the two things that the Steelers have. That's what my
article's about.
That's right. And that's why I wanted to bring it up. I guess a question then the burning question there is then you talk about Quan, and everyone's all about bringing Quan back, and I think a lot of Steel fans think favorably about a very small sample size from Quan in all due respect of not even half a season. Yeah. I think, and that's the general stuff. I just hear people say some of the most positive things about Quan, and I'm like, he struggled to stay healthy for several years in a row now prior to coming to the Steelers. Would you rather see them? Let's say they draft a linebacker in round 2, right? Would you rather see them then take a punt on a guy in the 4th, 5th, or 6th round instead of bringing back Quan Alexander? Or do you think for this team in a win now mode, you bring back the veteran and you only gamble on one, or not even gamble, but you only invest one draft pick on a linebacker? Because I'm kind of in the former. I'd rather see them bring in young guys and let them learn provided it's not someone raw like Mark Robinson, but someone that's played linebacker for like a couple of seasons in college and's got some solid production.
Well, you said two really smart things right there. First off, it's not a win now mode. That's the problem. The Steelers have been trying to win now for the last 6 years. Now it's a rebuild mode. And now we got to build for the future. So that being said, they already have a guy in Mark Robertson who's a project. He's got talent, but he needs time and to be coached up. And that's Aaron Curry comes in.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, if you get a top, say, second round linebacker, I'm all for it. I couldn't be happier. Then, by all means, then re-sign Alexander to be depth because injuries are going to happen. When Alexander is healthy, he's starting level talent. And if he plays less in a backup role, I believe he can stay healthier. What if you notice when he becomes the starter alongside Cole Holcomb, then he got injured. And you got a Landon Roberts coming back, who, again, if he could duplicate this year, I'm happy. But he's getting older.
I was about to say, the odds are on. That's not happening.
Holcomb is going to be probably going to miss the beginning of the year. They're shooting for the beginning of the year, but I don't know. That was a severe injury. So you cannot count on him. He's young, he's talented, but he also gets injured a lot. So that's why they really need to draft a young guy that they could, develop. So, we talked about Blake Martinez. Let him go. Not really interested. He was an emergency, measure. But I'm not interested in that. Walker is talented. He really is. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My computer did something weird. Walker is healthy. Is young, and he can really move. He's a good chase linebacker. But, that's a practice squad guy. I don't see him filling a roster spot. So, yeah, I'm like you. I'd love to see a young talent and then, have some insurance for Holcomb because we can't count on that right now. And hope that Mark Robertson develops and then have Alexander. And I think you got a good inside linebacker depth chart. Yeah,
and I think there's no more 4 inside linebackers, and depending on how you use the practice squad. I kind of think the way the Steelers play, it's kind of like you need 6. You need 6, 4, 5 that can play 8 to 10 games a season. Like no more of this. And really, the 6 spots kind of taken up with Mark Robinson at this point. Like who Mark Robinson reminds me of? I know they played slightly different linebacker positions, like one being outside. He's kind of like the Ola Adeniyi of this roster, where like he occasionally has this flash and does something good, but apart from that, it's a project, and like odds are probably not going to work out, unfortunately. But good try. It was worth the gamble.
I see what you're saying there. I see the similarities, and Robertson, just how raw he is and new to the position, gives me hope that he can be a Landon Roberts light, or like, whichever way you want to say it, because that's who he reminds me of.
Yeah.
But I was writing about the linebackers left in the Final Four here, the playoffs, and I was writing about Malcolm Rodriguez for the Detroit Lions. He looked like the starter last year, and he lost his job this year, but he's still talented. But he's short, like Robertson. He's more of a one-trick pony, like Robertson. And he has to improve his coverage, just like Robertson. The difference is Detroit just let him attack.
Yeah.
Just attack the line of scrimmage, attack. And the Steelers have asked Robertson, they ask more of their inside linebackers. And you have to read and think and then attack. And you can tell sometimes Robertson just ain't getting it. There's a disconnect, and he's unsure, and then he don't do anything. As I always say, the paralysis of over-analysis. And you see that with Robertson a lot. So I'm hoping that with another offseason, Aaron Curry and maybe some of these other veterans working with him, he can take the next step forward. Odds are against it. But again, as you said, for a end of the roster type, I still think he has that potential.
That's interesting. Because you said there with Holcomb being out, because other guys were talking about the safety, the other safeties that are there. guys like Elijah Riley and Miles Killebrew, and we're talking special teams guys at that point. But if we go into the linebackers, I think this is actually quite an interesting thing to do. In terms of people that are currently slated as free agents today when we're doing this show, obviously teams can re-sign these guys between now and the start of the season, although obviously things are not official till the new league season starts. But you got a guy there who's one of my favorite linebackers currently playing in the league, and like Devin White. Now, his average pay per year on his current deal as a rookie is an average per year of 7.3. Like someone's going to offer him 12, 14 plus. Bobby Wagner's back there at 34. I don't think the Steelers really kick that like that. To me, that's super kicking.
Do you think that Devin White's going to worth that much or going to rate that much? Because he lost his job to Kenny Britt in the postseason.
The thing for me, though, is like, I'm going to try and pull it up. Bobby Wagner, like the amount of money he got to go to LA, I was shocked at that money. Yeah, I was shocked at the deal that he signed to go to LA.
But he's he's like a Hall of Fame caliber player.
He was pretty old then, though.
Yeah, but he's a volume tackler. And what you think a team like the Rams that were desperate and they were willing to pay that amount for a guy that would be at the right place at the right time. He would just fulfill his responsibilities. Wagner used to be explosive and used to make a lot of splash plays. He didn't this year, but he was in the right position. And they didn't have anybody else that could duplicate that.
Look, I mean, if you can cut Allen Robinson and end up with Devin White, or even better, if you can cut Pat P and end up with Devin White, I will jump out of my chair and do jumping jacks in front of the camera on Steelers touchdown under. Like, I don't know. I just think there's some team. Like some of the contracts I've seen in free agency the last few years, it really opens it up. But there is a name on this list, like Levante David's void year or whatever. But like, there's a name on this list. He pops up for me in Madden. I just don't watch enough Panthers football, if any, really. I don't think I've watched much I don't think I've watched any Panthers football this year. Usually I try and watch a little bit. But do you know much about Frankie Louvu? Because like I've heard some interesting things about him, and it piques my interest, but I just kind of don't know whether he fully fits the Steelers, whether he's worth bringing in, the money that he's worth bringing in. Any of your thoughts on that?
Well, actually, that's one of the few guys on that list that I'm not that familiar with either. So I'm really not much help on that one.
We'll have to look into him. I'm keen on that. There's Cody Barden over at the Commanders. He obviously played with Holcomb. That could be interesting to pair that. Devin Bush is on this list. And the point of me bringing this up, guys, is that like there's some, there's not the, and you guys and gals out there listening, is that it's not a comprehensive list of really awesome free agent guys you want to bring in. Either because, and it's also because some of these guys are just going to cost a bit more. Hicks is getting old there from the Vikings. You got Kenneth Murray, who I just don't think that guy fits the 3-4. Jordan Brooks from the Seahawks. I think they'll do everything they can to re-sign that guy. Patrick Queen, who's still playing with the Ravens. I mean, how much is he going to cost? Also, I don't have tickets on him like some people do.
I don't see Queen going anywhere because they're the best tandem, Roquan and him, in the AFC for sure. They're definitely the best pair of 3-4 inside linebackers in the league. So I think the Ravens will work out something there. But Drew Tranquill.
I was going to say Drew Tranquill is a guy that I'm interested in that guy.
See, I wrote an article last offseason and I wrote the possible free agent targets. And remember, I wrote about Levante David. Yeah, he was older and he would be expensive, and he went back to the Buccaneers. I wrote about Edmonds. I wrote about Edwards. I wrote about all the guys that was there available last year. And Drew Tranquill was my sleeper because Tranquill had been a solid player on a bad Chargers defense. Now, this year with the Chiefs, at strong side linebacker, he has really solidified that Chiefs defense. The Chiefs defense carried them this year at times. The Chiefs defense was more stable and more reliable than the offense this year. So I believe Drew Tranquill, if people really look at his play this year, will see an increase and he will get a longer contract.
Yeah,
I'm a
I
fan.
think,
I like Drew Tranquil. Yes.
yeah, I think we're hard pressed to prize that guy away. He's getting old. I've always liked him. And you look at a guy like Denzel Perryman, but for me, if you do that, you're like, this is only until Holcomb is healthy. This is literally not a guy that like you're sitting there and going,
I
I
think he's a
expect.
lot. To me, he's a little bit better than Walker. He's a chase linebacker. I mean, what I
He
mean
can
about
lay a hit on though. He can lay a
yeah,
hit
but the
on.
problem is, but it's 5 yards downfield. To me, he's the type of guy like Walker, like when they brought in Williamson, Avery Williamson.
Yeah, he's very
These
Avery
guys make
Williamson.
good tackles, but no splash plays. They no tackles for losses. It's everything 5 yards downfield. I mean, that serves a purpose, but I'd rather that be Terrell Edmonds, my strong safety, making those tackles.
Yeah, that's fair. That's I'm
I
not
like
going to argue.
aggressive inside linebackers.
Yeah. Willie Gay's there from the Chiefs. They are signing him, and he is going to make a stack of money. So I'm not even going to go there.
That dude's a talent. He ain't going nowhere.
Shaquille Leonard, Eagles will find a way to make that happen. What about Zach Cunningham though? I mean, there's a guy that's made a stack of tackles. Again, I'm not seriously saying that he's like, oh my god, improvement. But again, if you are investing in that to cover 4 or 6 games, I don't think it's the dumbest investment. But do you have an opinion on Zach Cunningham?
Did you watch him this year with the Eagles?
I'm just saying.
Remember what I just said about Chase linebacker? He's another Chase linebacker. So he gets tackles, but like I said, it's just volume tackles, but it ain't impact. So I'd pass on him.
What about Anthony Walker Jr.? There's a guy that like a couple of years ago was getting some interesting. Oh, imagine! I know it was tied to the Steelers by different people out there.
Yeah.
I haven't seen as much the last couple of years for the Browns, but it's not like like vet minimum. I mean, that's what he's basically been on. Like, I don't know. Like again, another guy I'm open to. I'm not sitting there waving the flag for it because I don't think he's progressed. But yeah, any thoughts around Anthony Walker Jr.?
That defense, he looked fine. Because it was they were even more aggressive than the Ravens, in my opinion. They was so many times that man, they just imposed their will, the Browns did. And just attack. I love that. That's my kind of defense. I don't suspect the Steelers to do that, even if they do upgrade the secondary. I'd love to see it, but I just don't see the Steelers going that extreme next year. And therefore, he's a little undersized.
He is, yeah.
And so I would rather, again, you've got a Mark Robertson that you're still trying to figure out if you have anything there. The rest of the linebackers have been slightly bigger, at least heavier. Like Landon Roberts is short, but he's, so I really wouldn't be that interested with him unless it was a great deal.
And then the only other real, when I like go up and down this list, I mean, there's a guy I was high on a few years back, and I wanted the Steelers to bring him in. I thought he could have paired with Vince Williams terrifically. And his career is just taken a weird slide out of Atlanta, out of the Panthers. He's Deion Jones. I think it's hard to fully assess him in the last couple of years, but like he is getting to 30. But he's a guy that was super athletic and super fast. Do they take a floater on him if you can get him for the vet minimum?
I think you could pick him up next year for the practice squad, to be honest. I expect that to happen. When an athletic guy who's a chase linebacker, I keep using that term, but when a chase linebacker starts to get some age and they start to lose a step, you see them become like Miles Jackson, end up on a practice squad.
I mean, look, he had a sack this year. I mean, his record in a season is 4.5. Had 4 tackles for a loss. That's like not the worst season for him ever. I mean, it's not great. 1 quarterback hit. He had 1 interception, 6 pass defense. That's pretty good for him. So, like,
But you're not going to give up much to get that.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
and he only played 30% of their snaps. I also don't trust anything the Panthers did this year with all the previous years. So, from my perspective, it's like, well, you know, do you take that? My thing is exactly what you said. Is how do they go into it in terms of the fact that they've got Cole Holcomb as their top linebacker right now, and they can't. I don't think you can rely on starting a top 3 round draft pick even the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season while Holcomb's coming back. So, and Holcomb might come back later if they get another week 5 or 6 bye or week 4 bye. Let's say they're down that route. The Steelers might choose to go, no, well, you can come back after the bye. Like, I don't think it's set in stone that it's just like as soon as he can make it in, they'll rush him back in. That they don't. The Steelers don't do that as much as people.
No, they'll ease him back, because that was a severe injury.
And they won't want him to re-injure it. That's the other thing.
No.
Yeah,
but I still, if they go in, if you get Alexander and a vet man, Holcomb come back. It looks like he's going to rehab, and you have Landon Roberts, who's definitely going to be a starter to begin the year. Bring your rookie along slowly, and you add another veteran to that group. A reasonably priced guy off of this list, and we've talked about a couple. Devin White's is a dream because you know how much I liked him when he was coming out.
Yeah.
I wanted a Devin, but it was White. It wasn't Bush. We got the wrong one. That I think you'd be okay in that linebacker room, especially if Holcomb comes back, near 90% of what he was.
I guess
there's no guarantee there, but I think it's worth making that move.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't hate it. I think he'll want to come back. He knows what it is. He knows Mike Tomlin. Like, he knows he's starting on a Steelers defense. It's a comfortable place. All those good things. It's a football town. Respected franchise. There's only one more name on this list that I think is really worth it because other guys are really special squad guys. Special squad. The other guys are special teams or practice squad guys, not the special squad. Is it like Elijah Riley? Do you think it's worth them bringing back, or like if he can do another vet minimum, or do you think this is a guy that you just go, thanks for your service, move on?
Elijah Riley's kind of like James Pierre, and Miles Killebrew. These are guys that are at the bottom of the roster that can come in and like, I'd rather have Elijah Riley than Sullivan because Elijah Riley can play multiple positions, has some versatility. He has a closing burst that when he did get to play this year, we saw that a lot of the guys don't have. And he's a very good special teams player. So, like, if you're trying to decide between Pierre, Sullivan, Killebrew, or Riley, well, Killebrew just made the Pro Bowl, and he is a special team specialist who can give you spot minutes on defense. Snap here, snap there. He has to be higher than Elijah Riley because of the Pro Bowl, and he's an elite specialist.
Oh, I've just ticked the box that he's being re-signed.
But I would put Riley right beneath that. I would keep Riley over Pierre or Sullivan because, like I said, I want an overhaul this year in the cornerbacks. I want the 5 we talked about. I like to see that change, and it's going to have to change for the Steelers' defense to improve.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I guess from that perspective, then, is there anyone else on defense that you think the Steelers? We've talked all about the free agents. Is there anyone that they should be rushing out? And I would putting Cam Hayward aside because I think that's a deeper renegotiation. Is there someone that they should be running the card up, to use that analogy, in terms of trying to re-sign them from what you saw this year, or extend them longer than what we've seen them?
As far as just importance to the defense, it's going to have to come outside of the organization because they do not have a strong safety at all. And it destroyed Minkah Fitzpatrick. For the first time in his career, he had no splash plays. You're taking one of the most talented ball hawks in the whole NFL, and you turned him into a grunt. I mean, he was strong safety, free safety, box linebacker. That's like taking a Lamborghini and go mud bogging with it. I couldn't believe they allowed that to happen. And me and you talked before last season that, okay, you decide you don't want Terrell Edmonds, but you got to replace him with an adequate talent and a partner for Fitzpatrick, or you're going to hurt Fitzpatrick. Well, they destroyed Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
And I think I admire the heck out of him because he did whatever necessary, whatever was needed. But that's not how you use a ball hawk like Minkah Fitzpatrick. So I think there's a lot of the defense that there's going to be a lot of change, a lot of turnover. You're really building around your two edge guys and Watt and Highsmith and Keanu Benton. And then you got Joey Porter Jr. But other than them four people, there's nobody. And even of those four guys, I'll say this. And I love all four of them guys. But you take a guy like Highsmith with what he's going to be paid in his value, what can you get if you trade him?
I know.
And go the cheaper route? Because I said this when they signed Watt. You do not need the highest paid player at any position on a rebuilding defense. That's what I considered the Steelers at that time. They disagreed. Well, I think I was right. Because now to me, they got old and they're expensive and they got to change.
Yeah, I mean, my thing too is that, like, if I look at some of the actual strong safeties, not just people listed on strong safeties as safeties on over the cap, like, I like a guy like Kyle Duggar out of the Patriots. But I don't know that the Steelers are going to. They wouldn't spend, $2.5 to $4 million. I think you need to spend $4 or $5 to keep Terrell Edmonds here long term. Are we going to be willing to spend $8 to $10 million on a safety?
The rumor wasn't about the money; it was about the security. Edmonds wanted 2 to 3 year deal because he was happy in Pittsburgh, and the Steelers 2 years would not give it to him. And then the bridges were burned, and he left, and they did not. It wasn't.
He would have signed. He would have signed
an
before.
amicable separation.
He would have. If they were going to. Yeah, but that. I mean, I heard a rumor as well that was out there that said that he wanted like over 3.5 plus some guarantees, and they were like no. And then when the next round of negotiations was like, well, then we want a level of security exactly as you say, and then the Steelers were like, well, no. And
why would you not give Terrell Edmonds $3 million?
I know. How can you not give him 4 with what they gave Keanu Neal?
Let's say it was 3.1, like I heard, and why would you not give it to him? He was that reliable. He was always available, and he was the glue guy that did all the dirty work. And then you turned that and made Fitzpatrick do it.
I can't understand it. So this is a problem for the Steelers because they're either going to have to take a gamble in the draft, they're either going to have to overspend on free agency, or they're not going to fix the problem. And that worries me. I worry that they're going to go, we're going to get Keanu Neal back. But the Keanu Neal never was put on the injury reserve. I know. I'm shaking my head as well. But I need Omar Khan to prove me wrong here and make it move.
Well, here's the thing. You could get a guy who's reliable, like a Terrell Edmonds, who's not a splash player, but is a reliable, junkyard dog type. And you should be able to get him at a reasonable price until you find one. If you can't find one in the draft, like Sidney Brown last year, let's say. And there were some guys that we liked if they didn't bring back Edmonds. Even if they did, I liked a guy like that. But he went pretty high.
I think you need 2. Imagine
he went pretty high, higher than the Steelers were going to take him. But I think you could get a guy, as long as you don't expect him to be a splash player like they always wanted from Edmonds. If you want just a reliable plug-and-play guy, there is guys on that list.
Yeah, 100%. But they're not. That they're certainly not guys above the 210-pound limit. And I just have this thing where I think the Steelers strong safety needs to be 210 pounds, 6'1", 6'2" plus bruiser. That's just my thing. And I don't want a box linebacker playing safety either.
No.
And so I want an alien at such strong safety, and you either have to spend money or you have to draft higher to get that bloke. And I just
Troy Polamalu appears to still be in really good shape in them Head and Shoulders commercials. Maybe we ought to put in a call.
I just want to see Jay. So it was really interesting. I did the show on Reese's Senior Bowl, and we'll wrap up the show in a sec. But I did the show on the Reese's Senior Bowl earlier on in the week about 5 DBs. James Williams, the guy I'm pretty high on out of Miami, 6'5" guy. Let's see what the actual measurements are. But it'll be somewhere between 6'3", 6'5", over 215 pounds to 220 pounds. The guy will run, I reckon he'll run a 4.48 or definitely early 4.45s. That guy could be absolutely everything if we're thinking about that. Right now, slated to be a 3rd or 4th round pick. I think once people see him in testing, we're talking mid-round, second round. And I just think you get that guy, the versatility that he offers you, lights out. I mean, just change the game. It'll be like Isaiah Simmons on steroids for me. Steelers will not be making a wrong move if they go down that route. But we've got to see him through all the Senior Bowl, and we've got to see him through the combine, and we've got to see him do all those things and go through the process. But I just think this guy could be something. Particularly in the Steelers defense as well. It's not even so much the tape that he's got right now, but when he gets in there with Mike Tomlin, he gets in there with a Teryl Austin, I think he'd be really special.
I started paying attention to him because you brought him up multiple times, and I hope he doesn't test well. No, I'm serious. Guys like that, let's say during the combine and the drills, and he doesn't flip his hips as smoothly as they want to see, which if you watch his tape, he is a little stiff that way.
He is. He is. And that's why I think they're trying the whole linebacker thing with him.
That could easily cause him to drop into the 4th round. And if that was to happen, you got great value. So a lot of times I'm rooting for guys at the combine to test well. And other times I'm like, no. Don't test that good. Because now you're out of our reach.
Well, the good thing, I think that this is one of those examples, though, where, when we drafted Kevin Dotson, or when the Steelers drafted Kevin Dotson, and he was alongside Robert Hunt, who plays for Miami.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Williams, Steel fans out there, you'll hear a lot about Cameron Kitchens. He was the safety partner for James Williams at Miami. So there'll be a lot of focus on Cameron Kitchens and what he did, because he was pretty prolific. He was a prolific playmaker for them as well. But he was able to do that because also of what James Williams did next to him. And offenses will kind of pick what you want to do. And Cameron Kitchens is about 5'11", I think it is. But we'll see that confirmed with testing versus James Williams. So if you're going to lob the ball up there, you're probably going to try and throw it over Cameron Kitchens versus you throwing to a guy like James Williams as well. When you see that anecdotally, it's not like I've watched hours and hours and hours of Miami college football. But yeah, I just think this strong safety position, I went on about it all off season last year. I went about it on about it before the season. I went on about it during the season. I went on about it before the trade deadline. I went on about it toward the end of the season. I went on about it as soon as the season closed. If they don't fill it again, I'm just going to keep saying it until I see good strong safety play. That's the reality.
Oh, they're going to take care of it. I believe that they believed towards the end of free agency they were going to get Edmonds back. And I think because of the timing, and then they went into the draft and the way the draft fell, they missed out on a couple. They were happy with who they got, but they never really adequately addressed it. And I have too much faith in Khan and Waddle that they're going to take care of it this offseason.
Well, we're going to have to wait and watch and see. But that is going to wrap up another episode of the Steelers Global Perspective. I'm Matty P with Shannon White, as always.